What up, meatheads? Welcome to the Meat Block Podcast, the weekly podcast by butchers for everyone. And you may recall a few episodes back when teammate of mine for the Butchers of America team that will be representing this great country in the 2020 World Butchers Challenge in beautiful Sacramento, California. Please check out our GoFundMe. But you may remember a few weeks ago when my dear, great friend, Bryan Mayer, was on this show for an interview. And he was out here for about 2 weeks or 3 weeks and stayed with me a while during it. And we did much more than that interview. We went to a baseball game. We had several barbecues. We hung out the beach house that I'm trying to buy, or I'm in the middle of escrow on. He ate his first s'more, which I thought was weird that he never had a s'more growing up. Might as well taught him how to play catch. But besides all that great stuff in that interview, we also recorded a Q&A we did live on Instagram. And this is it. So I hope you enjoy super great episode of The Meat Block with superstar butcher Bryan Mayer. And now, podcast. We're telling your followers that you started a live video. Let's make sure I get my baldness in there.
That sounds so accusatory, doesn't it?
Yeah. Hello.
Like you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
We're telling your followers.
Hi, this is Travis. Hey, Darren's here. Awesome.
Hi, Darren.
And Bryan. Everyone's waving. We're doing a Q&A and we're recording this for a Meat Block bonus episode. So I am Travis, American Butcher, team member of Butchers of America, joined by other team member, Bryan Mayer.
Hello.
And so ask us anything, and this will be on the podcast. Could you hear us? I'm getting a lot of waves and no questions. Waves. You could ask us anything.
Y'all have some good profile pictures, I have to say that. I need to work on mine.
It doesn't even have to be meat related.
And I probably need a better, what do you call it? What's your screen name? Is that a thing?
Yo, you need a better screen name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're American Butcher. Can I?
You could be American Butchers or the American
The.
That'd be
The American Butcher.
well, you're the.
Yeah. Sure.
This is going great, guys. Just send in those questions.
I mean, I don't have anywhere to be tomorrow. What are you doing tomorrow?
I'm going to finish.
Oh, you got more like stones to.
Yeah, and then I'm going to go down to my father-in-law's house. Yeah, it's not that awesome.
I'm going to go to Seattle.
You should.
I am. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go up into the Space Needle. I think.
Are you going to go to the EMP? Is it the EMP?
They call it something different, right?
Yeah. Do some DMT.
You know, we could talk about that.
Yeah.
But we might venture into a realm that your guests aren't ready for.
Yeah.
We can talk about mushrooms and all that fun stuff if you want, but
yeah,
that might be off topic.
I'm getting a lot of waves and no questions. Not one question has come through yet.
So Darren would like to know where the rest of my travel's taking me. Well, I will be heading back to the East Coast this Wednesday. And then shortly after that, I will be heading back out west, further west to some islands in the Pacific to work with some people out there doing some pretty cool stuff with mobile slaughter and things like that.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So ask us questions. And I see that the Butchers Guild, which we're both a part of, and I'm assuming Tia, our team manager, is watching this now.
Hi, Tia.
What we did today was we landscaped my front yard.
We did. I slept in.
You did.
I ate donuts.
I ate some donuts too. We didn't go to bed until like pretty late because
we had a cookout last night.
We did. We had a barbecue at the beach.
Somebody almost burnt down your deck.
Yeah. Uh-oh, my wife is texting me. Uh-oh, my son needs milk. I'll be right back. You filled that question.
You leaving me solo? I'm on here. Do I have sole control of the Meat Block podcast?
Oh, good luck with that one.
I'm going to leave that one for Travis. So I'm in control now, so we will take over the Meat Block and do something entirely different. No. They come so quick. Let's see. Somebody was asking about being a line cook and wanting to get into butchery. Well, I would say if you are in an area that has a butcher shop, that you should walk in and ask them if they take apprentices, and you should hop in there and do what they say. That's the best way to do it. You can read books and watch videos, and those are all really great, but kind of out of context are difficult. So try to find a butcher shop that'll let you in the door. I know it's kind of hard these days. I was super grateful that when I got into this, I could kind of roll into places and just kind of do stuff. I would go into little Italian butchers in Brooklyn and little German butcher shops and learn how to make sausage and all that stuff. So just ask. Worst thing they can say is no. So who cares? Go to another place. The question: what's rose meat? And are you referring to like rose veal? And hopefully not meat roses or fat roses. So lab grown meat. I think it's interesting. We got a lot of people to feed, and obviously they want meat. So my feeling. So somebody was asking about lab grown meat and what our feelings on it. And I think that's a pretty good question. Do you want to start and then go from there?
Well, it's just what's the goal of it? Is it to cut down on resources to help make meat more available to the masses? Is it so vegans could ethically eat meat? Then vegans could eat, certain shellfish and things because they don't have nervous systems.
Sure.
Because what's the definition of meat? I'm not fearful, or like a lot of people may be fearful that it's going to take their job. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really think about it.
I think about it, because obviously, I read a lot.
Way to brag. Humble brag here.
I try to read.
Mr. Reed.
I'm trying to read less.
Okay.
more of the good stuff, less of everything. If the goal is to not have slaughter anymore and to not have livestock anymore, I think that's pretty detrimental to the environment. Obviously, having livestock is beneficial for the environment, even though that some people would disagree with that, but they would also disagree with science, I think, at that point. So we got a lot of people to feed, and we certainly have to come up with alternatives and other things to eat. I've been to dinners where, I've eaten bugs and things like that. And they were actually kind of tasty. I had a mealworm bolognese that was pretty good. And we got to eat protein. We have to eat meat protein, and that's going to have to come from somewhere. And obviously, we're not going to stop procreating, so we need to figure it out. So, in addition to, I'm not really fearful of that. I think I heard somebody like Richard Branson say something about like this will eliminate the need for slaughter and raising livestock, and so he was saying in 25 years. We won't have any of that anymore. And I would just like to say to Richard Branson, you were still opening up Virgin megastores at the beginning of the sort of digital revolution in music.
Yeah.
So your powers, your
insight,
prognosticating powers are kind of limited, I think. So I'm not really fearful. I do think that there's going to have to be some kind of oversight. So whether that's the FDA or the USDA, but if you want to call it meat, you got to have the USDA in there checking it out. So, you know, and I think they're not really ready for what exactly that means, because these aren't meat industry people, you know, and they're not versed in what a lot of us are versed in terms of oversight and those sorts of things. So, you know, it's going to come. We're going to have to face it. There's going to be an ick factor, like many things, but I think people will eventually get over it. And I think they both can exist, though. I think there's space for it all. Sorry, that was a lot.
That was. All right, what else do we have here?
Do we know any vegan butchers? No.
I've worked with vegetarian counter help.
You mean like that? Not like vegan butcher shops like those folks in Minnesota. Vegan butchers.
God.
I knew plenty of people that were vegans that came to butchery. I was not. I was never a vegan. I was never a vegetarian. I don't have that lovely story to tell that seems to be told.
I do, but it's not because
so often.
I do, but it's not because mine has nothing to do with like this great, like, you know, when I was growing up, I was straight edge, and I grew up in the hardcore music scene.
You straight edge hardcore kids.
Yeah, and so the next thing to be like really straight edge was
so much fun to be on tour with.
Yeah, we didn't know how to.
You know,
but we partied in a different way.
We used to love to go on tour and then like have a straight edge band open up for us, and we would just be like, turn these guys out.
Yeah,
just get to one, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I lost the edge, but it was part of that was
you lost the straight. You went right to the edge.
No, I was holding on too tight, and I lost the edge.
Oh, gotcha.
But I lost. But I still held on to being vegetarians for. So what does that say?
What is rose meat on a beef carcass, and what is the pH of fresh beef?
I don't know. Don't really have to check the pH. Usually, in my line of work, I deal with checking the pH off of semi-dried products.
Yeah, curing and those sorts of things. Right?
Yeah, and then I genuinely want my pH for semi-dried products at like 1.8 or no 0.8 and no higher than 0.92 with that's the available water. Geez, that's terrible. Here's a much better question. My brother had a straight edge friend who had huge mohawk and only ate McDonald's French fries. I love it. That's good. But so on semi-dried products, the pH I deal with is usually around 4.5 or so. And then
tell you do this every day.
Yeah,
that you're in that world.
And then my available water is 0.8 to no higher than 0.92. Higher pH is usually going to be an animal that runs hotter, and then I would recommend hot boning them and then turning it into sausage or emulsified product right away. Higher the pH, the better it's going to be to emulsify. As far as what the pH is off of a fresh carcass or fresh meat, it's just something I don't do or check. So I don't know those numbers off the top of my head and haven't needed to know those numbers ever in my career.
I haven't. And then rose, I think you're not talking about rose veal, you're talking about the rose meat on a beef carcass. So that would be, like metambrate, like all those cutaneous muscles.
Wiggle meat.
Cutaneous trunci. Whatever that trunci. So like all
the
that.
elephant ear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I call that wiggle meat because you ever see a beef
twitch muscles?
Yeah, when they're trying to get the flies off them, they twitch those, go like that, and that's the wiggle meat. That's like right here on the flank, it connects to the tri-tip. What else do we got? Also, those were two very weird questions to be simultaneous. Or obscure questions, not weird. There are no weird questions. Just weird people with dumb questions. Today, we spent the day landscaping. Nothing to do with meat. Currently trying to get my house on the market. Well, not currently. I'm going to put my house on the market on Tuesday. It's exciting.
Tuesday?
I think Tuesday.
Cool.
Yeah. If you've recently joined us, I'm Travis. This is Bryan Mayer.
Hello.
And he's in town visiting. We recently became new additions to the Butchers of America team, representing America in the World Butchers Challenge up in 2020. We're joined by some lovely teammates that Ryan is going to name all of them right now.
You put me on the spot?
Yeah.
Danny, Paul, Craig, Bryan, Cindy. Who else? You, me, Kevin. Who else am I forgetting anybody?
Well,
Tia,
our manager.
Yeah. Did I hit everybody?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Kevin. Yeah, say Kevin. Cindy. Tia, Bryan, Craig, Paul, Danny.
I'm getting a lot of waves, but not getting many questions.
It doesn't necessarily have to be meat specific.
Yeah, you could ask us anything. What's in the background? Oh, my supply closet. Don't look back there.
Yep. We said Craig. Didn't we say Craig?
You did say Craig.
Yeah.
Craig,
not Greg.
Craig. He has a list.
Not Brandon.
Yeah, I did think your name was, which is weird because they're spelled and pronounced completely different.
They are different names.
Sirloin flap, bavette, flat meat.
What about it?
Where does it come from? It comes from the flank primal. You peel off the third skirt, and then
the third skirt.
I know, I'm getting esoteric. Then you remove your flank, and then it's underneath that. What would you do with sirloin flap?
What would I do with it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? Like how would I cook it?
Yeah, what would be your favorite dish with it?
I'm pretty basic when I cook.
You're a Becky?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a Becky of beef. I salt it and then just a hot pan.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep everything in the pan.
Keep everything in the van. I got a bunch of meat in my van.
I don't want to know what's in my van.
Hi, guys. How's it going from New Zealand? Where are you guys based out of? I'm up in Bellingham, Washington. It's exciting. Pacific Northwest. And you are?
I'm based out of Philly right now.
But he's like a nomad. He travels. Nomad. He's been out here for, I think, 3 weeks.
Yes.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And then I will travel further soon. So there's a good question. What do you think is the most challenging part of running a butcher shop?
Making money.
Everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? I think, man, probably one of the most challenging things is the thing I think that most people forget. You know, they do all their sourcing and the build out, and they're buying the cases and all that stuff. But everybody seems to forget about the logistics, like how they're going to get the meat in the door. And that's the first question that I ask when I work with somebody. I ask them, well, how are you going to get this to you? Right? Is the farmer is more than likely not going to bring it to you.
No,
the slaughterhouse may or may not deliver it. Are you going to pay a trucking service? Or are you going to put that, so how do you manage that cost? Because trucking is super expensive. And
it is. Depending
where you are and your proximity to the slaughterhouse. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that a lot of people forget, the logistics part of it. And that could be really challenging.
Yeah, so there's this time when this just reminded me of a story. I was working in a small Southern California town, Los Angeles, and I believe it's Los Angeles. And
is it a small Southern California town?
No. And we were getting our hogs from this processor that was slaughtering underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. Not literally, it's just kind of where they were based. And I would receive carcasses, and the only way for me to receive them was on this truckload at 3 a.m. and behind a what do you call it? A Chinese grocery store, and then I would take them into our delivery van, break them down into subprimals for chefs.
Nice. And
then deliver them.
I've picked some meat up out of trucks off the side of the roads before.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to figure it out, but yeah, that's a super challenging and potentially very costly part of doing business, especially buying whole carcasses. If you're not buying whole carcasses, and you don't necessarily have to buy whole carcasses, you can still buy really good meat that doesn't, that was at some point on a carcass.
Yeah.
But that challenge of getting those very large pieces in, it's a huge challenge. Yeah.
I think another challenge that a lot of people don't expect to run across is when they want to utilize everything that they receive and minimize waste, is how to do that with added value, and how to do that. And then also, what do you do when what you make doesn't sell? And the worst thing you could do is put it in a dumpster. And if that's your option, then it would be better if small shops started entertaining the idea of paying a rendering fee to have stuff picked up, and then that way it'll get repurposed, reused, either in animal feed, cosmetics, or fertilizer.
Yeah, not a lot of shops utilize the rendering process, and it's a really great way. I mean, it's your last line of making sure that every bit gets used, and I think that's one of the sort of the problems that niche small butcher shops face, is that for all the talk of using the whole animal, it's very, very difficult, especially if you don't have the means to cook it and serve it, to use the whole animal. And large meat companies are super efficient, right?
Yeah,
nobody's ever accused them of not being efficient.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, you may be able to write it off too, if you're paying for them to come pick it up.
That I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would try.
Yeah.
Certainly. We got some more questions here.
Let's see.
How long did it take you from apprenticeship to complete cutting on your own? I think like last week. I started cutting on my own. No,
I'm not even cutting on my own yet. There's always somebody watching. I don't know. A long time. But cutting on my own till I felt confident, and I don't even know if I still feel confident. But I was really lucky that when I started doing this, there was access, and people, I guess, maybe were less savvy and hadn't quite figured out how to monetize this thing yet. And so I would go and cut and cut and cut and cut lots of meat. And so I don't necessarily know if, there aren't many places that allow that these days. And there are very few places that have actual apprenticeships. I mean, do you know of any?
No. I also never did an apprenticeship.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, shout out to my boys, Jay and Kevin, Hudson and Charles, that actually do a paid apprenticeship. I think there might be, I would be very wary of what I kind of call cash grabs these days, which are just, businesses charging an exorbitant amount of money to not learn how to butcher. You're going to do something for a day or two, and you can say you butchered, but it's really difficult, and think about it from this standpoint. You're going to go into a butcher shop where the margins are very, very thin, and you're going to apprentice there or want to cut meat there, and hopefully they're getting 2 carcasses a week, maybe more, and you're going to go learn, and you're going to make mistakes because that's part of it. But those mistakes could be very, very costly to a niche butcher shop that's operating on very tight margins. So, yeah.
And as far as I came from a background where I was shown something, and then it was repeated. Then I would be timed with the stopwatch with that motion, and then and that's how I learned how to brake. That's how I learned how to cut. Eventually, when I moved off the braking line, it would go from I'd get a subprimal and read a cut sheet, and I had 15 minutes to turn something into something else. And if I was not good at it, I got fired. Yeah, but there was an evolving where from one cut, they didn't start you off with the tenderloin. They started you off with something that would be turned into trim.
Yeah. Just start to necks or something like that. Say go to town.
So you get your knife skills. And then as far as any good butcher should never be done learning. There'll never be a point in my career where I know everything. And if I do, that just means I've gotten lazy and became arrogant.
Sure. Shop owners struggling with accounting for whole animal usage. How do you cost all the added value? I don't know. That's a hard one because I think, it's regional. And so I think, stuff that East Coast butchers produce might not sell so well on the West Coast, might sell better, in the Midwest or down south or in the Southwest. And I think, there's also all the variability that goes into, your overhead, your rent, what you pay your employees. There's lots of talk about increase in minimum wage. I think that's a very tricky, sticky subject matter, as there a lot of cities around the country or states rather are raising their minimum wages and rightfully so. I mean, people have to make a living. There's other things though. I mean, this doesn't sort of exist in a vacuum. There's other things that have to happen for people to be able to afford to live. So it's hard to think about, how to use everything and how to cost that and how do you value that? Because it's all very particular to one's business model and what margins they set up for themselves. I think again, Travis, you had a really great point in that if it really becomes an issue of using it or tossing it, which in some instances it just might be, it just the work that goes into it might not be recoupable, or it might not be worth saving it because you're using space that can go to something else. So I think the idea of trying to allocate that to a rendering company makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then as far as costing added value, I could tell you from standpoints from cut and wrap facilities and added value, or because I'm a processing manager, taking it away from the butcher shop, but boneless versus bone in, you got a 25 to 50% difference because of the labor going into it. And then you have your costs on certain bone in items may need no bone guard. It may need this additional thicker mill bag. Cost analyze all your seasoning, anything that's ground from a cut and wrap standpoint is usually going to be $1 more per pound. Anything seasoned is going to be $2 more a pound. Anything linked, you could do another 50 cents per pound. So where you're initially charging $1 cut and wrap facility per pound, then you end up charging about $4.50 for twisted ground products at the end of it for the customer.
Which could be a very delicate thing, right? Because it's not passing everything along to the customer is, most of these things aren't price elastic.
Yeah. And this is just from a cut and wrap standpoint, as far as like, you have this beef, you want this sausage out of it. So for me to get my grinder like this, and then to do the headache that may be making someone 20 pounds of this sausage, 20 pounds of that sausage, and labeling, and then stopping the processing, possibly cleaning out the grinder. That's just
sure.
And then assuring that they get their meat back, because you may be dealing with a lot of different, you may be doing a bunch of different numbers.
Yeah. And then on the retail level, you have that face to face with the consumer, who's very aware of price and very sensitive to price increases, as they should be. And so that's a whole other sort of thing to deal with as well.
And it's something that I personally haven't dealt with that often. I more or less see the product as a, I don't deal with the customer face to face.
Yeah. I had a very sort of kind of telling experience when I had opened up my place in Philly. It was over $7 a dozen eggs, which to some might seem like a lot of money. To others, it might not be, but that's what they cost. And people were really upset about it. Yeah. And, there were those neighborhood blogs and all that. Like, it was kind of chatter on there. Yeah. And a customer came in one day, and they spent a good amount of money on meat. And then at the checkout, I heard the person that they were with say, like, oh, we have to go to whatever the other store is to get eggs. And I said, well, we have eggs here. And he looked at me matter-of-factly and said, I'm not paying $7 a dozen for eggs. I said, okay. And so that was a, kind of a good starting point for a conversation about eggs. Yeah. And why they cost what they cost, and how, traditionally maybe they were loss leaders for farmers to get other, to have them come to the stand, and they would buy other things, it would draw them in, and that, farmers should be paid for their product. And those eggs cost money to generate and feed and time and all those sorts of things. And that, so we had an interesting conversation. I wound up giving them a dozen eggs, and I, kind of said, like, these are really awesome eggs, as most pastured eggs are. Yeah. Everybody's got the best eggs. They're all really great if they're out there doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I just said, hey, if these aren't great eggs, you don't have to come back. But if these are really awesome eggs, I want to see you in here every week or something like that. So he came back next week and said the eggs were awesome. And he bought the $7 a dozen eggs, and it's, I tend to find with individuals like that it's not really based on the price. It's just some sort of feeling that they have that they just don't want to pay $7 a dozen for eggs. Yeah, they have an iPhone, and they're totally willing to pay for the iPhone and pay the cellular carrier all that money. Yeah, that's not where the line is. The line is at $7 a dozen eggs. And I have an iPhone too, and I pay some carrier.
But I'm looking at your iPhone. It's pretty beat.
It's beat up. But I also buy $7 a dozen eggs. Yeah. So there you go.
All right. Any other questions? I think we'll do one more question.
We can stay here all night. I don't know.
Well, I want to publish something tonight.
Oh.
And then I got to do a bunch of landscaping.
Oh, you got to work in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to the Space Needle.
Yeah. Anything else? Is there anybody out there?
Anybody.
One time, David and I did this, and it was nobody.
Nobody came on?
It took a long time. We're down to 4 people.
I think it was an off night.
Yeah.
That's all. You guys did it like on a holiday eve or something like that.
Not a question.
But just a statement. Brisket.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. I love brisket.
Mm-hmm. I
don't eat a lot of beef, by the way.
What do you eat a lot of?
Chicken. I used to have an issue with chicken. I think anybody that's ever raised chickens or worked on a farm has an issue with chicken. It's my least favorite farm chore is to get the chickens back in at night, the layers. Yeah. And when I opened up my place in Philly, I wanted to raise our own animals. Like that was the ultimate goal. Like everything that came through that door would be animals that we were raising. Mm-hmm. And so I thought the easiest way to do that was with chicken. And I said, we'll have, meat birds and layers. And my buddy Kevin Tucker was so entrenched in the farming community out in Lancaster, hooked me up with this awesome farmer. And he's like, yes, let's totally do it. And so we built the infrastructure and the hoop houses, and I ordered all the chicks, and we had everything going, and I talked to my business partner, okay, we're going to open up. Everything's going to be great. Yeah. And of course we didn't open up.
Yeah.
And I had 500 birds on the ground, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do? So we tried to find people, and I had, and yet,
these are layers?
No, they were beepers. Yeah.
So about 16 weeks, they start getting aggressive with each other.
Yeah. Well, no, they were going to get killed around anywhere from 9 to 12 or something.
All right.
Yeah. They weren't going. Yeah. But so, I made some phone calls, and we, Philly's a relatively small city, and there's a few restaurants that sort of adhere to sourcing well and that sort of thing. But you can exhaust that at not 100 birds a week. Yeah. So we did I came up with people had done it before, but we did a fried chicken pop-up once a week. So I would drive to Lancaster on Tuesday, would process, right, slaughter on Tuesday, bring them back. Wednesday, we'd butcher them and get them into buttermilk and brine and all that. And then we did it on Thursday night, prep them Thursday morning, and just get them ready to go. And so, which was great, but I feel like this was sort of like my cosmic comeuppance or whatever because of my hatred for chicken and having to work with them so much and them being just little bastards.
Yeah.
And now I love chicken.
I like chicken.
And I eat a lot of it.
I've also caught Campylobacter. I've probably killed more chickens than any other animal.
Yeah.
Going into probably 40,000 that I've killed.
That's a lot.
Me and my wife used to collect about 500 eggs when she was 8 months pregnant.
That's why your boy's so strong.
Yeah. We, when we used to help raise I think it was 400 Freedom Rangers, and our slaughter date got pushed back, and they got too old and too aggressive, and we were losing about 7 of them a day from them pecking each other to death.
After each other.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about society.
Yeah.
By watching chickens.
And we had the rolling pins and all that stuff. All right. Well, we're down to 3 of you guys.
That's it? Everybody dropped off.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. If you like this, thanks. If you didn't, all right. Till next time. Bye. All right. I hope you guys out there in audio land or wherever you are enjoyed that episode of the Meat Block, and I want to say big thanks to Super Butcher star Bryan Mayer. And the reason I call him that is because that's how he saved in my phone something along those lines. And he is so modest and so genuine, and I just like giving him a little jab in telling him how great he is, because it makes him feel awkward, and it's awesome. So, Bryan, you're one of the best butchers in the world, and thanks for humbling me and coming on to my show, and look forward to cutting with you in the future. Hope you're bright red now. So wrapping up the show, if you want to get a hold of us here at the Meat Block, you could email us at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at themeatblockpod, or Instagram, which is really the best way, at the Meat Block. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm at American Butcher on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to get a hold of Bryan, just type in Bryan Mayer, and one of his many platforms, which is only Instagram, will show up. And if you want to follow our adventures on this journey of being on the Butchers of America team 2020, you can follow at Butchers Guild USA on Instagram. And there will be updates, and you can click on the GoFundMe, which is linked on that page, or the GoFundMe, which is linked on my Instagram page, which is at American Butcher. Click that GoFundMe and help us on this amazing journey to bring or to help shine a spotlight on butchery. And, chefs out there, they get to be called chefs, and they get all this credit, and, you had the Food Network and all that stuff. And like Rod Slater says, we want to make butchery sexy. So we want, it's our time. So all these chefs who like, I could I butcher my own pigs. Yeah, probably pretty badly. So why don't you watch us do it? That's enough throwing shade at chefs. I love you. And until next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin. What up? This is the after show bonus segment, I guess. I don't know how. I don't have a name for this yet. This is let's call it your this is your fresh cuts. This is your fresh cut segment. I don't know. But I wanted to say the reason, or people ask me, about like Butcher of the Week and, the videos I used to do is with this whole moving thing, and then just with summer and, I just find myself not having that much time, and I want to get back to doing that. I want to have the life where I could do that, but with moving and traveling and going on vacation earlier this summer, and then making the Butchers of America team, I had to lean in and tighten up my schedule, and just social media in general for me has kind of taken a backseat while I was focusing on these big projects, and while I'm continuing to focus on just this move. I will get back at it soon. And yeah, so thank you guys. Bye.